In this video, I'm going to show you how I take this microphone from sounding like this to this, using audio mixing principles that you can apply to basically any hybrid lav mic. Let me explain. What's up, nerds? Welcome back to the channel. In the last year or so, I've posted a few review videos of these hybrid lav systems, including the Rode Wireless Pro here. And the most common question that I get on those videos is how I get these microphones to sound just so gosh dang good. So even though I'm not an audio mixing professional, I am a man of the people, so I will be walking you through my entire audio production workflow for these hybrid lav mic systems. Now, like I mentioned, I'm not a professional. I did take one class in college by a real audio professional in the industry, but the majority of my process is based off of almost a decade of trial and error making videos just like this. So I guess take it with a grain of salt. But with that being said, grab a snack, maybe a drink, and with the help of today's sponsor, Audiio, let's get started. Now, I do all of my post-production workflow in DaVinci Resolve. So in this video, we will be using the Fairlight page of DaVinci. Now, I'm fully aware that not everybody uses DaVinci Resolve. So instead of paying attention to the exact things that we're going to be working on and changing in Fairlight, I advise you to pay more attention to the principles. So like if we're working on a compressor, pay attention to how I'm using that compressor, or pay attention to how I'm using the limiter and the settings that I'm putting in, because then you'll be able to take those settings, those principles, and apply them to whatever program that you're using, whether that be Pro Tools, Logic Pro, or Audition. On top of that, it will also just make you a lot more dynamic in your audio editing, so you can mix not only these basic lavalier microphones, but also like high-end microphones like the Shure SM7B. Now, the microphone we're going to be focusing on the most is the Rode Wireless Pro. I do have a few samples here from the DJI Mic 2, and we will be addressing a couple of those samples. But again, if you pay attention to the principles, you can apply all of these presets or filters or whatever to any basic hybrid lav mic. So the first sample here is the Rode Wireless Pro in 32-bit flow in a handheld position. You can kind of see this on the top right. This is one of my favorite ways to use this microphone, either in one of these handheld like interview situations or to literally just hold the microphone in my hand. So this is the audio clip that we are going to be paying attention to the most. Now, I do have a bunch of these other samples here that, again, if I do a live stream of this, which let me know in the comments, I will deep dive into the rest of this as well as answer all of your specific questions that you might have regarding audio production. So now the layout of Fairlight is pretty self-explanatory, but on the right side here, you have all of your different faders, you have buses, you've got your EQ, dynamics, effects, and a bunch of other things here. Also, I'm in DaVinci Resolve 19 beta. This is the studio version, so I did pay for the DaVinci Resolve. So if there are features that you're like, hey, that's not in there, then most likely you're on the free version, but you still should have access to basically everything I'm showing off here. Now, the first step I like to take when doing my audio production is to normalize the audio levels inside of my clip. So if we go to this first clip, the Rode Wireless Pro, you can kind of tell just by looking at it that our audio tracks are a little quiet. If I play this, known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. You can kind of see on our right-hand meter over here, we're hitting about minus 15 dB. And to kind of get started with things, I like to be anywhere between minus 10 and minus 5 dB. So what I like to do using Fairlight is to right click on my clip and this window will come up. Then going down to normalize audio levels, I'll just click on that. And right here, you can kind of see that I already have this YouTube preset sort of set up. This is a preset that DaVinci Resolve creates. So this isn't something that I made, it's just automatically there. You have a bunch of different options in this drop-down menu for presets, but the YouTube one is one of my favorites. It's basically going to take any peak that is in your audio and raise the loudest peak to minus 1 dBTP. And as far as my knowledge, that's basically minus 1 decibels where that peak is going to be. So if I just hit normalize here, you can see that this increased by quite a few decibels. And when I play it back, there's no way a bee should be able to fly. It's a lot louder, and that peak is about in that minus 5 to minus 10 dB. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground. Now, another option, if you don't want to use the YouTube preset, is to right click on that, go to your normalize audio, and then click on this drop down menu and go to sample peak program. And then you can actually define which dB you want that to hit, whether it's minus 9 or minus 1 or minus 3. Whatever you want to change it to, you can do that yourself and identify where that target peak sample is going to come from. Now on the right side over here, we have our mixer. The only three things we're going to touch on in this video is the effects area, the dynamics, and the EQ. We're not going to focus on buses or sends or pan or stuff like that. Those are things we can touch on in another video. Now, where I like to start is actually in the dynamics tab. So if we just double click on this, brings up this page here. Now, right here, this is just a visual representation of your audio. Wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground. You can see that it measures our input, gives us a nice little output, and then kind of gives you an identity of where the decibel range is on this sort of diagram, the graph, I guess. So right here on the left side, we have our expander and our gate. So if I flip the switch here, that turns on our expander. And our expander is basically a way to reduce the amount of gain in a certain range of our audio. So a lot of times you might have like background noise or echo or something like that. This is a really good way to get rid of it without using like a noise reduction preset. It also lets you customize things really nicely. Now, before we touch this part, I like to go to the compressor and get started with that at first. Now, what's interesting about your audio clip, so if I move this to the side a little bit, you can kind of see that there's a lot of peaks and valleys in this waveform here. You can see this is really high, this is really low, and it's kind of like really dynamic. But if you listen to any type of audio track, for some reason, people don't like that it shifts up and down all the time. Maybe it's jarring or something like that. So a lot of times with mixing, you want to figure out a way to level that. One way to do this is to go in and create these keyframes and to use modulation to kind of increase the decibels and decrease the decibels within your waveform. Now, this can get tedious really, really quick. So that's where a compressor comes into play. A compressor is going to identify your peaks and your valleys within your waveform, and then it's going to increase the amount of gain in your valleys and decrease the amount of gain in your peaks so that everything is kind of on the same playing field. Now, an easy way to get started with this, I like to bring my threshold all the way to 0 here. Your threshold is going to identify where that center point is for your peaks and valleys. So basically saying this is the median that I want everything to be brought down to or to be brought up. Again, this is how I understand it. If there's a better way to explain it, please let me know in the comments. Our ratio is going to be how much that gain is decreased relative to our threshold point. Now, just visually, DaVinci Resolve kind of lets us identify where the average point is with the measurements of our audio. And what we can do is we can find our median point. I was kind of seeing it land right here, sort of by the -20 area. So if I bring our threshold down to there, wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground. You can see there's a little bit of a difference there. Now with vocals, I was taught in my class to do a 3:1 compression ratio. Whether that's correct, you can let me know, but it seems to work for my voice. So now if I play this back, its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground. We're making a little bit of progress, and you can definitely tell that our output has gone down by a few decibels. So what we can do is we can use the makeup gain to bring it back up to where it was. So this is now taking kind of everything and increasing the gain a little bit to sort of recover stuff. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground. Now, I think that's doing a pretty good job of evening these valleys and peaks. I might bring my threshold down just a little bit more. Laws of aviation. There is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground. I'm starting to like that. So I think I'm going to keep it there for now. So with that being said, let's go over to our expander. If you kind of listen in the background of this audio real quick. Aviation. There is no way a bee should be able to fly. You can see there's just a little bit of space, almost like a reverb or an echo. Let's see if we can get rid of that just a little bit. So I'm going to turn on the expander here. Again, bring our threshold all the way down to here. Kind of similar to the compressor, this is going to identify a median point to then decrease the amount of gain to kind of cut that off. A gate is another way of doing this. I'll talk about that in a sec. No way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground. So you can kind of see with those like yellow bubbly things, I'm seeing like the lowest point is somewhere around here. Now you don't want to cut off audio points because if you do that, you're not going to be able to understand people too much. So with right here, I'm kind of staying in a safe area, and then I'm going to turn my ratio down just a little bit and then turn my range probably right there. So now I'm identifying the range that I want to decrease the gain, and then identifying how much I want it to decrease to. These are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground. The bee, of course, flies away because bees don't care what humans think is impossible. All right, so that's sounding a little bit better. Again, the expander is a very, very subtle thing, but it does make a difference, especially when you have background noise. Now, a gate is another way to do this that's just much, much harsher. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat. And if we bring this range all the way down to like minus to like 40 or something like that.
No way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
You can kind of tell that there's this dead space right here. And instead of having it be like a little bit of noise, or you can kind of hear like those mouth noises or something like that, if we identify the correct threshold area and our range and ratio, then this should almost be dead silent. So that's pretty dang close. And so there's still a little bit of a breath there. I'm kind of okay with that though.
Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
For talking head stuff like this, it's not super necessary to get super clean, but people making like audio tracks for Taylor Swift or for like bleachers or something like that, they're really going to pay attention to like those breaths or like mouth noises or stuff. And that's a way to get rid of that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in the dynamics is your limiter. So this is going to identify how much you want to limit those peak areas of your audio and kind of like stop your audio completely. This can help you avoid like those crunchy sounds of like too loud of audio. Now, I don't love this feature too much, so I try not to use it super harsh, but you're basically creating like a shelf for your audio.
Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
Now, kind of listen when I like turn this up like a ton. So I'm going to turn this to like minus 30.
According to all known laws of aviation.
Sounds terrible, right?
There is no way a bee.
So you got to be careful with this setting quite a bit. When I worked at a place doing video production, I had a coworker that would use the limiter a ton, and the audio was pretty interesting.
Bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
I'm gonna leave it somewhere between like -9, -10.
The bee, of course, flies away because bees don't care what humans think is impossible.
That's a pretty good like starting point there. I might come back to this a little bit later, but that's basically a quick rundown of the dynamics for this first clip. So I'm going to click out of this page and we're going to go over to our effects real quick. Before we touch the EQ, I like to add the effects. Click on the effects tab right here, this little plus, and you can see that we have a ton of different options here. We got reverb, we got tools, we got spatial, we got restoration like de-esser, de-hummer, noise reduction. People love noise reduction. In this video, we're only going to be talking about the dialogue processor. Now, if I click on dialogue processor here, now, first thing that I like to do is create a little bit of a preset. So if I hit this drop-down menu here, you can see I have a few different options, but I'm going to hit male voiceover. This is automatically going to change a few of the settings and identify a few of the presets for me. But you can definitely tell right here, we have a de-rumble. So this is going to get rid of some of that like low bassy stuff that just sounds crunchy and unnecessary. We also have a de-plop. So, you know, for those plosives and those pickle, like those P's and B's sounds that just don't sound very pleasing and can be kind of jarring in an audio recording. De-esser is another thing that is really important in audio production. So those S sounds that you have then, especially with, you know, for me, I tend to talk in the front of my mouth. And so I have a lot of issues with de-essing that I try to change this a little bit. So that de-esser is going to help us get rid of some of that really high-pitched sound that comes from the sounds when you're talking. Now, we don't need compressor because we already used that, so we're going to turn that off. We don't need expander because we already used that, so we're going to turn that off. Excite is a very interesting tool that I know nothing about, so I turn it off. It kind of sounds like it adds maybe a little bit of highs to the EQ. I don't think it's super necessary, so I tend to not use it. This is where my de-pop, de-ess, and de-rumble, kind of just an easy way to keep it all in one space without going in here to the effects and going to my restoration, doing a de-esser or doing a noise reduction. Turn off the de-esser. I'm going to do a before and after. We'll start with the de-esser here.
Of aviation. There is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. Let's see if we can get rid of that S-ing just by using the preset.
Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
It's pretty good. It definitely decreases our gain just a little bit. I'll mess around with identifying where that S point is coming from. Next thing I'm going to do is go to my de-pop because there's definitely a lot of pop that we can get rid of here.
No way a bee should be able to fly.
B, there's that first one. So I'm just turning on de-pop.
No way a bee should be able to fly.
It's a little bit better.
Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
I guess this preset thinks that there's not too many plosives here. So I'm just going to mess around with this and see if I can.
Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
That's a little bit better.
The bee, of course, flies away because bees don't care what humans think is impossible.
So this is kind of just messing around with this frequency area and identifying where those plosives are coming from. Next thing I'll do is de-rumble. This is going to get rid of a little bit of background noise.
Too small to get its fat little body off of the ground. The bee, of course, flies away because bees don't care what humans think is impossible.
That sounded pretty clean to me. Let's do a little before and after. So this is before we used our effects.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly.
And this is after.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
Much cleaner. If anything, we can go back to our dynamics and maybe increase this makeup gain to like +5 or something like that.
Laws of aviation. There is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
Yeah, that's sounding really good to me. I think somewhere between this like 6.1, 7, something like that. At this point, you might still notice a small amount of background noise or like hiss in the background. Now, you could spend hours cleaning this up, adding different plugins, and probably making a mess of things. Or you can do what I do, which is to add a little bit of background music. So let me show you how to do that with today's sponsor, Audiio. Audiio is a platform that has all kinds of professional royalty-free music and sound effects for you to choose from. And it's what I use for literally all of my videos, whether it be YouTube or client work. In fact, one of my favorite features of Audiio is to use their new Link Match AI software. It lets you go to platforms like Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and more. And if there's a song that you really like for one of your videos, so like here's one that I really like, you can copy the link to that song and go back to linkmatch.ai and paste it into that software. And then Audiio will automatically find the closest match possible to that song within their royalty-free music database. So after I copied and pasted that song into the Link Match software, I now have all of these different options to choose from that are instrumentals or vocal songs to then create my video with. Let me take a look at these. That's freaking close. I'm not gonna lie. That's super, super close. Like that's scarily close to the original song. It's not the original song and I can use it for all of my work, but it still sounds really close. I'm digging this one quite a bit actually. All right, so when I'm ready, I can go and download this song, download my song. So this is a little highlight video that I'm working on right now. So I'm going to import the music into my editor, drag and drop on my timeline, find a little spot that I like. That's really clean. I like that a lot. So I kind of think this song works really well for like a highlight reel. So that's why I put it on this video. But maybe I want something that's a little bit more background noise vibey. So instead of using the Link Match software, go into my music. I'm going to choose my mood to like chill. You guys know I like this vibey type of background music, so I'm gonna go with this. So now to get rid of that little background hiss, we can do this. I'll drag and drop my music into my timeline editor, and I usually bring it down to somewhere around -20, -24 dB. So I'll change that.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
See how that kind of just gets rid of that little like sort of hiss in the background, just makes things a little bit better. Now, if you want to use those cool AI features and use the best royalty-free music and sound effects, then click on the link in my description and use code BEN70 to get 70% off your first year of your Audiio membership. Thank you so much, Audiio, for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into the tutorial. All right, so we've done compression, we've done our limiter, we've gotten rid of a little bit of background noise, added some effects. Now is where the magic and the secret sauce comes in. All of the things I've kind of talked about within the dynamics and the effects tools are basically able to apply onto any audio production workflow. But the EQ is where things change quite a bit. So we're going to double click on our little EQ box here. Like I mentioned before, audio waveforms are measured in hertz. So right here, you can see that our hertz is measured on the bottom. You have this little graph here, all the way from 0 hertz to 16,000 hertz or 16 kilohertz. And on the left side, we have our decibel measurement. So you can see we have -40 to -80 and 0 up above there. You can see that I can kind of grab these little circles here and drag them down, drag them up. I can move them around and I can change how my audio sounds just by doing stuff like that. So check this out.
No way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
You can see that I can manipulate the audio quite a bit just by moving that one little circle. And so that's going to adjust the gain and also adjust where that gain is either increased or decreased. Now, I like to get started by doing a little bit of a high pass filter. So I'll go over to band 1 here and I'm going to click on that. And you can see that immediately starts to just decrease the decibels of our lows in this kind of frequency range from like 125 to 0 hertz.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly.
But we still
its
want
wings
a
are
fair
too
amount of bass.
small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
One thing that these hybrid lav mic systems really struggle with, and this is almost every single hybrid lav mic, is the lows aren't necessarily as bassy enough, especially for low voices like mine, and the highs aren't necessarily as crispy enough, or they're too crispy. That's definitely some things that we're going to adjust here. So I like to start with this high pass filter right here. Then I also like to kind of just get rid of all of the unnecessary highs that exist in this high area right here. So it plays
the
back.
bee, of course, flies away because bees don't care what humans think is impossible.
Now that doesn't make a huge difference, but it does kind of get rid of some of this unnecessary mud that tends to happen in a lot of audio recordings. Now, before we start increasing a lot of things, I'm actually going to take my 2 area, my band 2. I'm going to increase the amount of bass that comes from my voice.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
So I'm increasing it by about 10 decibels, and then I'll kind of move this 1 over here. So now I'm identifying that, okay, in this range right here, I am going to increase the decibels by about 10 decibels. So then the next thing I like to do is identify areas where maybe we need to decrease like just a very specific part of the EQ. So what I like to do is kind of drag up in this band 3 area. And if you use your scroll wheel on your mouse, you can actually narrow where that range is going to be. It's called the Q factor. And so I'm going to take this, I'm going to increase it like really high. And
there is no way a bee should be able to fly.
That is crispy.
Its wings are too small to get its fat.
We're going to just kind of move this back and forth like this and identify areas where maybe things are a little too hot. Maybe they're just a little too jabby when we're listening to it.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly.
I think right there is probably a good range. So then I'm just going to bring this down about 10 decibels.
There is no way a bee should be able to fly.
I'm going to do the same thing with band 4, but do it more in kind of this 1,000 to 2,000 range. Now, male vocals kind of live between this 1.8 and like 3.5 thousand range, something like that. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring this up and just identify where things might be a little too crispy.
There is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
That sounds like a good spot, so I'm going to drag that down.
Way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
Last thing I'm going to do is increase the highs. I have to do this a lot with the Rhodes. Typically, I'll increase them about 10 to 15 dB on this side of the graph.
There is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
That's where the sauce was. That's what we were missing. It just sounds so much better.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
That just sounds so much better. Let me show you before and after. So this is before we did anything.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly.
Sounds fine, but just it doesn't have energy, just doesn't have power to it. Let's turn this back on.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly.
Now, you have to be very careful to kind of massage this to sound subtle, but still give enough of an effect that it makes a difference, right? Because we can very easily increase this too much, and then all of a sudden people's ears are ringing, or we can decrease it, and all of a sudden it just doesn't sound energized. It doesn't sound good. It sounds muffled or muted. So be very careful when adjusting these to just be delicate, I guess is a good way to put it. All right, so that is a really basic rundown of all of those features. Let's do a quick before and after. So I'm going to pull up each one of these. So this is just for the Rode Wireless Pro 32-bit handheld. So this is the before.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly.
It's all right. So let's turn on our dynamics.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly.
Let's turn on our plugins.
Laws of aviation. There is no way a bee should be able to fly.
Let's turn on our EQ. Again, this is where the magic sauce comes from.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground.
Just sounds so much better, so much more power. And again, there are a lot more things that we could do here. I could play around with that EQ for another 30 minutes and probably get it to sound so much better. And again, I could play around with the compressor, the expander, and stuff like that. This is just a really quick run through. If I were to get deep diving, this video would be 2 hours long. Now, if you want something like that, I can do a live stream. Real quick, let's go over to the DJI Mic 2 in the handheld in 32-bit. I'm gonna show you a little bit of the differences that I would make in comparison between those two mic systems. So let me show you just the raw recording here. I'm gonna normalize it first. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The raw audio from the road just sounds so much better in my opinion. But so right here, I can see that A3 is where our effects are. So I'm actually just gonna copy and paste the dynamics, and I'm also going to copy and paste our effects. The EQ is where we're gonna make a lot of differences. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. It's still just lacking a lot of power in that chest area. Some of those lows need to be increased. Those highs need to be increased just a little bit. So let me copy and paste and see what happens there. Again, I'm just right-clicking on the box, selecting copy, and then pasting. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. Now, it's still sounding pretty good. I feel like there's maybe a little too much chest there. So I'm going to open up this EQ and see what we can do to adjust it and make it sound a little similar to the Rode system. I'm just using the same principles I was talking about in the Rode recording and kind of just applying them as needed in this EQ. All known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. I can kind of hear there's a lot more echo in this one for some reason. To all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyway, because bees don't care what humans think is impossible. I feel like it just needs a lot more bass. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. There's something going on that just does not sound right. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way. It was too loud. That was the problem. So then we just go into our dynamics and decrease the makeup gain just a little bit. So this is before. Again, mostly just doing copy and paste here. We messed around with things a little bit. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Sounds okay. It's a little dry. Let's turn on our dynamics, our EQ, and our plugins. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Well, sounds pretty good. Let's compare it to the Rode. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off of the ground. The Rode just, oh my gosh, the Rode sounds so much better. I don't know what to tell you. The Rode just sounds better. We could mess around with this quite a bit. I'd love to mess around with this more in a live stream, but again, in a quick video like this, that's about kind of the basics I could show you without taking up too much time. But that is basically a quick rundown of the audio production process that I go through for these lav mic systems, more specifically the Rode Wireless Pro. So again, if you're interested in a little bit more of a deep dive, let me know in the comments. I'll do a live stream. And if you're interested in using Audiio, thank you so much, Audiio, for sponsoring this video. I really am a super big fan of their platform. So again, if you're interested, click the link in the description, use code BEN70. You can get 70% off your first year membership of Audiio. And they also have some one-time payment options for lifetime memberships as well that I'm a really big fan of. You know, I'm a DaVinci Resolve fan, which has that lifetime membership option. So you can do the same thing with the Audiio. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button so you never miss out on new young filmmaker content. Good luck filmmaking.